All right. First rule of this channel, we do not talk about this round. Second rule of this channel, this is not legal advice. So welcome to After Waivers Week 13. I always say I don't feel bad about not rolling a guy that I couldn't have predicted, but I always feel bad knowing that I knew something and didn't, take advantage of it. So in this case, if you haven't heard, Jonathan Taylor is slated to miss 2 to 3 weeks with thumb surgery. I would not be surprised if they put him on IR. That means that if Zach Moss is available on your wire this week, I would be dropping the farm. From the perspective of like, it's not how much a win is worth; it's how much 2 to 4 weeks is going to be worth. And that's going into the heart of the playoffs. So like, if you got all your fab, I would say drop all your fab. And even then in a league, then it might take the waiver claim on top of that, on top of the fab. Let's see this bye weeks, week 13. This is going to be a tough one for everybody. Bills, Bears, Raiders, Vikings, Giants, and Ravens. Next week, it's just the skins and the cards. I talked about the reactive waiver wire stuff yesterday in the Chasing the Dragon video. So if you're kind of curious about like, who you got to go throw out there, reactively, go check that video out. And I did a longer waiver or a handcuff video earlier today. So if you're curious on that stuff, go check that out. So first line of business, let's see. I have the real life NFL playoff standings, and in the AFC, if you can, the Indianapolis Colts are the 7th seed. We'll talk more about that later. Houston, the Broncos, the Bills, even the Bengals and maybe the Raiders are still in contention. The Chargers, Titans, Jets, and Patriots are probably out of it. So how they're going to handle the rest of their season is going to be all different. And then from the perspective of the Ravens, Chiefs, Jaguars, Dolphins, Steelers, and the Browns, they're probably all in, or with maybe the exception of the Steelers and the Browns, because how, much of a struggle their wins have come. Like I could see the bottom falling out of both of those teams. From the perspective of the Colts, they are still playing to win, and I could definitely see that they try and get Jonathan Taylor back early to make playoffs, and I could also see that they hold him out knowing that they got Zach Moss and they can wait for him to be real healthy. Moving on to the NFC, it's a little bit different scenario. So your Falcons and your Saints and your Buccaneers, they can get in by just winning the South with a sub 500 record. So their road is a little bit different than maybe your Rams, your Packers, and your Vikings and your Seahawks, who have to get in to the 6th, 7th seed, because the Cowboys are probably going to make it, and the Lions, the 49ers, the Eagles are also going to make it. So really, realistically, the only teams that are really out of it are the Cardinals and the Panthers. And the Bears and the Giants have a very hard road of winning out to basically get in. So, paying attention to how teams are going to be using younger guys that don't really have anything to lose. And then that means that like a team like the Carolina Panthers, they can't tank, because if they tank, the Bears get the pick. So like they might as well develop Bryce Young and see what they got there. So that's just something to be paying attention to going forward. Let's see. I have this other thing to talk about, as I have this from a previous video pulled up there. So overall fantasy defenses right now, the Cowboys and the Ravens are really the only set and forget type of defenses. The Browns, because of their quarterback situation, it's probably going to downgrade their defense. Myles Garrett does look like he may not miss a lot of time, but that's something to be aware of, especially this week against the Rams. 49ers and Chiefs are still probably in that sub-elite tier, but I would be paying attention to their matchups. And I'll talk more about the 49ers here in a second. The Jets, I don't think, are necessarily a set and forget defense because of their offense. The Bills have been disappointing, probably matchup based. So the Dolphins, Steelers, Colts are actually up there, and the Vikings, and then you can just start to see the tier break after that. So after you really get past the Chiefs, you are going to be looking more to get into that streaming area of looking at matchups and rolling some of the lesser defenses against the good matchups. So if I have the Cowboys and the Ravens, I'm no longer going to really matchup shop. I'm just going to take, the 40-degree days and they can win me a week. The Browns, the 49ers, and the Chiefs, I will probably be looking at matchups. And then after that, I'm just in that streaming land. So there's only going to be really potentially 5 teams in any league that hold a defense that isn't going to be streamed around for the rest of the year. All right. So moving on to the 49ers, I don't really have anything new to talk about. Elijah Mitchell's the cuff. CMC is a unicorn. Brock Purdy can win your league. and Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle will cannibalize each other. I did say I was going to talk about defense, and I think this week you can roll them out against Philly because Jalen Hurts is a turnover machine. So even if it's a higher scoring game, hopefully the 49ers should be able to force enough sacks and turnovers to still get you to where you need to go. All right, Bears on Monday Night Football. The biggest thing with this, Justin Fields went 27 of 37, 217, 12 for 59, did have 3 sacks, 2 fumbles lost, and they were kind of costly. The biggest thing to take out of this is Justin Fields is rushing. He didn't get home with the touchdowns. That's what we would like to see, obviously, but like him being able to make DJ Moore jump back into that wide receiver 1 role, 13 for 11, 114, and then Cole Kmet's going to be able to go fight with any of the top tier tight ends on any given week because of how he, his connection with Justin Fields, 7 for 7 for 43. The defense for the Bears, week 15, they have Cleveland, paying attention to the defense, and in the chip, they have Atlanta, so planning ahead accordingly. The running back situation for the Bears. So last night, Roschon Johnson did 74% snaps, 10 for 35, 5 for 5 for 40, and a fumble not lost. Khalil Herbert only did 21% snaps, 6 for 24, 2 for 2 for 14, and Deonta Foreman either was a healthy scratch or ankle something, and probably a little combination of the two going forward. So right now, like if Roschon's available in my league, like you're potentially can project an RB2 going forward. Fields may be the de facto goal line running back, but Roschon's probably going to be able to get enough of the valuable touches to make him give him a good enough week to week floor. And then even though I think his ceiling is going to be a little bit capped again because of Fields, I think he is a good play if he can get that 74% snaps. The Bears may want to see what they have in Fields, and that means making him act like a real quarterback and not just this an athlete playing the position. So moving forward. So, all right, the Bears, Jake Browning is serviceable. What that means is I still think Jamar Chase and T Higgins, whenever T Higgins is healthy, are valuable. They probably have their ceiling capped a little bit. Both are going to cannibalize each other like the 49ers toys. From the bigger thing I think it does is it really moves Joe Mixon down. He was at 65% snaps, 8 for 16, 2 for 2 for 44. And again, if Joe Mixon can't get the receiving work, there's going to be less opportunities to score touchdowns. That's really going to hurt him going down the line. And part of that's going to be, he's limited because of talent and ability and age at this point. I talked about this earlier today. Travion Williams is the cuff, but I would be aware that Chase Brown, the rookie, may end up being the main guy if Mixon goes down. This is probably Mixon's last year in Cincinnati, and depending on how the season shakes out, they may want to see what they have in Williams and Brown for the rest of the year. Tyler Boyd, 63% snaps, 5 for 3 for 23. If T Higgins remains out and you really have to, you're really throwing a dart, Trenton Irwin with Higgins out was at 72% snaps, 1 for 1 for 25. So those outside receiver, higher productive snaps are more important than the slot snaps that Boyd is going to have. He's pretty much a slot only player. So if you really have to matchup shop like with Higgins out, it would be Trenton Irwin. And then Io Voss, whatever the rookie from Princeton, he was active, 33% snaps, 2 for 1 for 16. And again, this is more dynasty stuff. Should be stashing away for next year. I could definitely see that Tyler Boyd and Trenton Irwin walk. And then anybody that's really chasing after Tanner Hudson should be advised that like these 3 tight ends, Irv Hudson, Drew Sample, and Tanner Hudson, combined for 8 targets, 7 receptions, 37 yards, and a touchdown. That touchdown went to Sample. Otherwise, Irv Smith's at 37% snaps, Drew Staples at 44% snaps, and Tanner Hudson, who got like 5 for 4 for something, he was at 30% snaps. So again, this is more of a timeshare. And now with the downgrade of Burrow, I'm just really not interested in any of this. The defense does have some interesting appeal weeks 14 through 16. They see guys like Gardner Minshew, who's a turnover machine, and if Josh Dobbs is still the quarterback for the Vikings, he's a turnover machine. They also get Pittsburgh, and believe it or not, Kansas City hasn't been that good. So the Cincinnati defense could still be rolled out if you can't find a better option that week. The Bills, Josh Allen's elite, and what we got to talk about first is the running back situation. I already talked about this earlier today. Ty Johnson jumped in the game. This is the 3rd straight week he's been getting some action. He's at 12% snaps, 6 for 19. That goes along with James Cook, 43% snaps, 16 for 43, another 7 for 6 for 57 on the ground. So I still think that if James Cook is your RB2, he's your RB2. He probably doesn't have the ability to really give you a 40-degree day. It's going to be boom bust. Latavius Murray was at 44% snaps, 9 for 30, 5 for 3 for 18. Again, Josh Allen is going to be the goal line running back. And then there's still reports that Leonard Fournette will eventually be activated onto the main roster. I don't know what that does to any of this, but like, I don't think this is going to necessarily make Cook go away. It's just he's already volatile enough as is. And if you throw a third guy in there, and that third guy might already be on the roster, and Ty Johnson, it's going to get a lot tougher to really want to bank on him going forward. Stephon Diggs is 92% snaps, 11 for 6 for 74 and a touchdown. And then to talk about Gabe Davis, he was at 96% snaps, 12 for 6 for 105 and a touchdown. Khalil Shakur was at 80% snaps, 5 for 3 for 47 and a fumble not lost. Higher volume passing offense, good quarterback. With Gabe Davis and Khalil Shakur, if you're rolling these guys out there, you have to be aware that they can, win you your week or they can lose you your week. There's going to be nothing in between. I think Stephon Diggs is a downgrade at this point because I can definitely see that there are going to be other guys getting their week and it's going to be at his expense. He is 29 at the edge of the age apex. So again, this is part of the fantasy world, and I'll talk about this when we get to B-Rob here in a second. You have to realize that this is what this guy does, and if you start trying to play the game of pulling him out of your lineup, putting him back in, you're going to miss the winning weeks. And a lot of those down weeks shouldn't be losing you the week in and of itself. So like, as long as I have built my roster the right way, I can survive when these guys hurt me. Let's see. Dalton Kincaid was at 61% snaps, 6 for 5 for 38. Dawson Knox, the team said they're hopeful that he can come back from IR in week 14. So with the downgrade in usage to go with Dawson Knox coming back, hopefully you're preparing to pivot off of Kincaid after the bye. The defense does have New England in the chip. And now with how inconsistent the Chargers have been, week 16 with the Chargers is probably a good roll also. But week 13 and week 14, they do see Kansas City. Maybe not. Again, Kansas City's been inconsistent also. Not as bad as the Chargers. And I definitely wouldn't be rolling them out week 14 against the Dallas Cowboys. All right, the Broncos. So Russell Wilson is a low-end streamer in one quarterback league, and he's a solid in super specs with an okay schedule. So I can actually bring up Russell Wilson's schedule so we can talk about the Broncos. He does have Houston, maybe that could be a little, force them to throw a little bit more. Chargers have been inconsistent, one of the worst defenses in the league. Detroit's defense has been spotty. Probably wouldn't be rolling them out against New England because I think New England is going to be, just going to bog the game down. And then again, they got the Chargers again in the championship. So like, he does have some stream appeal in one quarterback leagues, let alone being able to roll him out in Superflex. Let's see. So Javonte Williams, I did see he went out of the game with a neck. I haven't heard anything else about this. He was at 70% snaps, 18 for 65, another 6 for 3 for 6. Gonna be in that volume-based RB2 role because the offense is just generally not going to be good. Samaje Perine was at 27% snaps, 7 for 55, and a touchdown, another 1 for 1 for 11. So he's a priority cuff on top of the fact that he may be able to win you a week or a league depending on what Javonte's status is. Jaleel McLaughlin was down to 3% snaps, 2 for 4. So even if Javonte's out, I could definitely see Perine's going to get that 70% touches going on. Courtland Sutton, his 5-game touchdown streak ended. He has 8 total on the season. He was at 78% snaps, 6 for 3 for 61. If you're still carrying Jerry Jeudy, he was down to 61% snaps, 3 for 2 for 11. Low volume passing offense. They're going to try and run the football. The defense is playing better. Jerry Jeudy snaps is going down. And I ask you when you would play Jerry Jeudy and who would you play him over, if you're wondering. Marvin Mims was down to 48% snaps. This is from a season high 69% snaps in week 10. And then week 11, he was at 56% snaps. So again, like, I don't know what you're looking to hold on to him for outside of dynasty leagues. The defense does have some actual sneaky weekly appeal. And to bring them up again, this is after they got absolutely obliterated by the Dolphins. Houston probably wouldn't be rolling him out, but I might be thinking about rolling him out at the Chargers. Probably not Detroit. But yes, in week 16 against the Patriots, and maybe again in week 17 against the Chargers. And again, with the Chargers, um, we'll get to them a little bit later, but like I could definitely see a coaching change being on the horizon there with how bad things are going. All right, moving on to the Browns. So DTR was 14 for 29, 134, a tug, and then 5 for 21 before he left with a concussion. Maybe this week is PJ Walker. He's a turnover machine. It also could be 38-year-old Joe Flacco being rolled out there. Either way, I'm not that excited about it. I do overall think that this upgrades Jerome Ford, especially because with Amari Cooper may be out with ribs. He was 74% snaps, 6 for 2 for 16. Vacated targets, this is just generally a fantasy rule, tend to go to running backs. In the case of the Browns, I would say this upgrades David Njoku, who's at 85% snaps, 9 for 6 for 59. I could see he is the one who absorbs more of those targets than anybody else. But I think Ford, who did do 70% snaps, 9 rushes, 65 yards, 7 for 4 for 14. I could see him absorbing some of those targets. Also, Kareem Hunt was at 26% snaps, 7 for 22. I talked about this in the Cuff video. I could see that Pierre Strong becomes the every down back, and then Kareem Hunt continues to be the goal line guy and the high value touches guy. Jerome Ford is a guy that I would be interested going forward, especially if they can at least get serviceable quarterback play going on with that defense. Elijah Moore was at 86% snaps, a 9 for 3 for 44, and a fumble loss. In terms of wide receiver threes, especially with Cooper, I would feel pretty good about Elijah Moore being rolled out there with that 7 to 10 opportunities a week. The guy that I would be really interested in throwing a dart at if Cooper was out, Cedric Tillman, the rookie, 89% snaps, 5 for 4 for 55. So that production is going up. That opportunity is there. Now we're just waiting on that spike week. And if Cooper goes out, that's the indicator to go. Otherwise, he's a guy that if I need that wide receiver 3, I would be rolling out and trying to catch that lightning in a bottle. Like I said, David Njoku's still there. I could see him benefiting from the theoretical vacated targets from Amari Cooper. He's going to be a tight end 1, and he's creeping up into those higher levels of tight end 1 range. Let's see. I already talked about vacated targets. The defense, I don't know what's going on with Myles Garrett. I did see that it's not as bad as an injury that's feared. Overall, I think this is a downgrade to them slightly. I'd still be rolling them out at the Rams this week, and then I would probably be streaming around them until week 17. So we could talk about that if I pull them up. So week 17 is the Jets, and we're going to be rolling about everybody that we can against the Jets rest of the season. So that seems like a good play if I'm preparing for the playoffs. All right. The Bucks. Baker May was 20 of 30, 199, 2 tugs, 1 pick, another 3 for 14, 2 fumbles, 1 lost, 1 salted the game away. Did have MRI in his ankle. It showed no long-term damage. Whether or not he plays or not, I don't know. We won't know until tomorrow what the tea leaves say. Kyle Trask is the second-round pick from 2021. I thought he was okay in college. And again, some of the stuff is hard to actually project forward in the NFL because like you don't know what's going on with college and you don't know what they're being asked to do in the NFL. I thought he was okay. He's not going to be a rushing upside guy. He's going to be a high volume guy, which is not going to make him a weekly play from the NFL level. If he does play, it's going to keep him viable because of the toys that he has, and it's going to keep the toys viable. I don't know if he's going to be a gunslinger. I don't know if he's going to be a check down machine. But anyway, like I think there's enough there with Kyle Trask that I wouldn't be upset. But to give you an indication of what the Bucks think of Kyle Trask, he wasn't the backup for Tom Brady last year, and they brought Baker May in, and Baker May won the job. So that should give you a pretty good indication of what the Bucks actually think of him. Rachaad White is still that low-end RB1, 87% snaps, 15 for 100, another 2 for 2 for 10. Chase Edmonds is not, cuffable. I talked about this in the cuff video. 12% snaps, 1 for 11, and then 1 target. Probably would be a running back by committee if White goes down with Sean Tucker and Keyshawn Vaughn. Mike Evans was at 92% snaps. He's going to win leagues. 9 for 6 for 70, 2 tugs. He's going to finish as a top 10 wide receiver at this rate. He's 150 yards away from having another 1,000-yard receiving. Chris Godwin, 83% snaps, 7 for 3 for 45. Someone asked about whether or not Chris Godwin is droppable. I think he's in that wide receiver 3 range. Maybe I would have not feared him being in other people's lineup, but with the potential of a quarterback change, I don't want to take the chance that Kyle Trask turns him into a wide receiver one, and Mike Evans is the guy that becomes Chris Godwin. Trey Palmer was at 68% snaps, 5 for 4 for 17. Cade Otton was at 100% snaps, 4 for 4 for 45. So obviously in deeper leagues, Cade Otton should be rostered. And he's going to be a fringe starter. We can start to try and get cute about which weeks to be rolling out Cade Otton if defenses are going to take away Mike Evans and force checkdowns and whatnot. But at this point, like, he is a safe streamer, especially guys that are going to be on the field like this are going to have the ability to catch touchdowns as a tight end. So yeah. And then depending on if it's Baker May or Kyle Trask, that might change the usage of Cade Otton going forward. The defense, Carolina, the tea leaf says a solid play with the caveat of the coaching change may make me not want to roll them out at Carolina. So you do you. It says it's a good play because the offense has been bad. It also says, like, I don't know what's going to happen because if the coaches were the reason why Carolina was bad, we could see that uptick like we saw with the Raiders or the Steelers. All right, the Cards. So Kyler Murray's 27 of 45, 256, one tug, 1 for 2 on the ground, another tug. I wouldn't be rolling him out until they play Chicago week 16, and Chicago has actually looked a little bit better. So I don't know if you really should be leaning on your Kyler Murray shares going forward. They have Pittsburgh. That's going to be a slower, uglier game. San Francisco, I definitely would not be looking to roll Kyler Murray out there. Chicago, Philadelphia, maybe I could get away with that in the chip. So maybe if I don't have a better option, Chicago, and then maybe Philadelphia. The bigger issue with Kyler Murray is I was thinking that this was going to force him to be a better quarterback. It's not. He still has his nimbly bimbly, and that's what makes him a good fantasy quarterback. It also is what hurts his toys. So his toys become less viable because he's still relying on running around like a chicken with his head cut off. James Carter was at 42% snaps in the blowout. DeMarcado came in for 20% of snaps, 3 for 15. And then I talked about this. Michael Carter was at 38% snaps, 4 for 19, 4 for 4 for 15. So if I'm the Connor owner, I would be picking him up and cuffing at this point. James Conner, they can't get out from underneath his contract next year. Michael Carter is still under contract. And if they want to see what they have going forward, I can see Michael Carter is going to be more explosive than James Conner, who's kind of that grinder. And if James Conner is not going to get the receiving work, that really starts ticking him down the line. With Kyler Murray being the guy who's going to vulture touchdowns, it almost makes James Conner no longer fantasy viable because you're hoping he falls in the end zone. There's not going to be a chance he's going to fall in the end zone. And if Michael Carter is getting the receiving work, again, I don't know what you're looking for in James Conner, and I have some James Conner scares. So let's see. Hollywood Brown was at 87% snaps, 12 for 6 for 88. Most of that was in garbage time, but he did have like 140 something air yards. So like that boom is gonna come. So like just keep rolling him out. It'll eventually happen. And if it happens in the right week, like you're gonna either be advancing in the playoffs or not. But boom bust wide receiver 3 is not necessarily a bad way to be looking at Hollywood Brown. Let's see. Michael Wilson was out with his shoulder. With the bye week, I could definitely see that we won't see him again until week 15 at this rate. Rondell Moore, 75% snaps, 3 for 2 for 35. Greg Dortch, 76% snaps, a 9 for 3 for 27 and a tug. And it looks like I talked about this already. Rondell Moore took over the Michael Wilson role, and then Greg Dortch fell into the Rondell Moore role. And again, chasing those wide receiver 3s. Even with all those targets, I just don't know. Like, you want touchdowns, you want these long, more productive, less efficient, lower probability plays. That's not what a guy like Greg Dortch is necessarily going to give you, or Rondell Moore. So the only guy outside of Hollywood Brown is Trey McBride at 86% snaps, 9 for 7 for 60. And now you're in wide receiver 3 range. And if they're not throwing at a high enough clip and they're not efficiently pushing the ball down the field, there's going to be a limited amount of touchdowns. Like, these guys just don't have enough value to really be throwing out there unless you're in really deep leagues and you're hurting. Let's see. And the defense, I just have no. The Chargers, Brandon Staley needs to be fired. Justin Herbert, 29, 44, 217, one tug, one pick, 4 for 47 and 4 for 47 on the ground and a fumble lost. The 4 for 47 is what's going to keep him at least somewhat fantasy relevant. That hasn't been overwhelmingly predictive. And again, if you have to stream, you're a QB1 around defenses, you don't actually have a QB1. They do have New England this week at New England. So again, be prepared for an ugly fantasy irrelevant game. So like Justin Herbert would be someone I would be looking at streaming around yet again. Austin Eckler, 80% snaps, 10 for 32, 6 for 5 for 32, and another fumble loss. Joshua Kelly is the only other running back that was getting in there 20% snaps, and he's the cuff. Keenan Allen is in that elite to sub elite tier, 16 for 14, 106 fumble loss. Quentin Johnston was only at 44% snaps, 3 for 1 for 7. He left with ribs. He could have come back in. He was cleared by the medical staff. The coaches said no. I never thought Quentin Johnston was a good prospect. You're trying to chase the opportunity in a high volume passing offense. That may no longer be there. He still has some value as long as he's the number 2. Josh Palmer is eligible to come off of IR. Once Josh Palmer's eligible or comes off IR, then Quentin Johnston is no longer fantasy relevant. Gerald Everett was at 64% snaps, 4 for 4 for 43 and a tug. Donald Parham was at 42% snaps. And again, we can't predict anything with this offense beyond the passing offense beyond Keenan Allen. And if Gerald Everett and Donald Parham are splitting time, it makes them less and less relevant. So maybe I could think about streaming a Gerald Everett as long as he's getting the a majority of the receiving opportunity. That may be something to look forward to going forward. Otherwise, I'm just not chasing anybody extra than I need to in this offense. And the defense, the T League say are a good play. The worst defense, one of the worst defenses in the league, going up against one of the worst offenses at New England week 13. If you're into that type of thing in your league. All right, the Chiefs have been disappointing. Patrick Mahomes have been disappointing. 27 of 34, 298, 2 tugs, and another 5 for 9 on the ground. Isaiah Pacheco with McKinnon out with a groin. He was at 78% snaps, 15 for 55, 2 tugs, and another 5 for 5 for 34. So with McKinnon out, he's a wide or running back 1. CEH did do 20% of snaps. So I talked about this. I think he is actually the cuff over McKinnon, but I could definitely see it turning into about a 50-50 split, and some of the valuable touches gets divvied up between the two of them. CEH being the goal line running back, and McKinnon being the receiver / goal line red zone receiver, which is going to diminish CEH's value. Before we get into Rashee Rice, because there's a lot to talk about, and I do have a little bit of tape that we could potentially watch with this. The context behind this is, first of all, Kadarius Toney was out, last minute scratch with an ankle hip. McCole Hardman was on IR with thumb surgery. So 2 of the guys that were eating into the usage are gone. I did see that Rashee Rice was up to a season high in route participation, 71% routes. Justin Watson was at 57% snaps. He only had 3 targets. Sky Moore was at 57% snaps, 3 for 3 for 34. And then MVS was at 53% snaps, 1 for 1 for -1. And that's after that costly drop that he had. So how sustainable is Rashee Rice going forward? What should I value him at? I'm going to be rolling out my Rashee Rice rest of the season, realizing that he's probably going to be extremely volatile. I do have Rashee Rice. So the main one to look at as we look at the tape, these designed screens, these may be called by the coach, or they may be designed based off of what the situation looks like. To get design touches, I always like design touches. The crossing route, hey, whatever, that may or may not be designed to go to him. Here's another design play to get him the yak plays. These are nice gravy on top of whatever else he gives you. Again, if Mahomes isn't hitting that back foot and getting the ball out to him, it wasn't designed to go to him. Here's a scramble play. This is not going to be predictive, other than if he's on the field, he has the opportunity to get this. Let's see. So if he doesn't hit that back foot right there, that's a play that I like. He's looking to Rashee Rice on his back foot. The ball gets out, that he's the primary target. This is a check down. Again, this is gravy. The gravy is what allows you to have the floor. And then all the rest of the stuff is the stuff that's going to win you a week. This is his touchdown on the yak play. The crosser that he's able to turn it up. This is what he was known for coming out of college. The main one that I really like is the one that's going to come up next. I think this is the back shoulder fade. So like he hits his back foot, the ball's out. This is a more difficult vertical shot. This is more productive. This is what we want from a fantasy perspective. So there is stuff to make me think that some of the stuff is going to equate towards having more week-to-week predictability, and there's some of it that's like, yeah, that's not going to be something I can rely on. The scramble drill stuff outside of him just being on the field is not something I can look at. Some of the designed, screen stuff, the quick game stuff is not stuff that I can necessarily say that he's going to get on a week to week basis. But now he's getting some of those vertical shots, and that's what really gets me thinking that this is something that I can get excited about going forward. Travis Kelce was at 77% snaps, 7 for 6 for 91. And then Noah Gray, if you're in that fantasy, the dynasty leagues, he's at 50% snaps, 3 for 3 for 30. And then we shouldn't be really surprised that the defense was disappointing against the Raiders. The Raiders have looked better after the coaching change. And AOC may be serviceable as a quarterback, but they should still be a role against the Packers in the same type of thing where they could be disappointing. They may have a good week against a quarterback that's like a little bit on the iffy side. They could be rolled out maybe against Buffalo, and I can bring this stuff up. So any turnover machine quarterback, the defense is in a play regardless of how bad that they would be. So Buffalo, I could see rolling out the Kansas City against Buffalo, Josh Allen. I don't care about points and I don't care about yards. I care about turnovers and sacks. And Josh Allen will give you both of those. Again, I would probably be rolling them out. New England, maybe the worst defense or offense in the league, only but maybe behind the Jets. Maybe the Raiders again, and then Cincinnati doesn't have Joe Burrow. So I should have at least a couple plays out of Kansas City, and then maybe I would be streaming around them if I have the opportunity to be planning that far ahead. Let's see. The Colts, and I talked about this already. The Colts are the 7th seed in the playoffs if the playoffs ended today. So the schedule, Gardner Minshew, I probably would be downgrading Gardner Minshew as streamable based off of the schedule going forward. So the Tennessee game may look good on paper, but this is going to be an ugly script where they don't need to score a lot of points. They're probably not going to be throwing a lot. Same thing with Cincinnati. Without Burrow, it's not going to turn into a shootout. Pittsburgh's going to keep it ugly. Atlanta might keep it ugly, and the Raiders might keep it ugly. So trying to predict a guy who has limited amount of nimbly bimbly to go along with the potential lack of high volume passing offense, probably not something I'd be interested in. They do play fast. There just are probably going to be better week-to-week matchups that we have going down. I talked about this yesterday a little bit. The big news, if you missed it coming out of the gate, Jonathan Taylor, 2 to 3 weeks, looking like he's going to miss 2 to 3 weeks with a thumb surgery. Zach Moss would have been a priority pickup for me anyway. He was at 41% snaps, 8 for 55, another 3 for 2 for 15 on the ground. So again, if you're wondering, like everything I got to get Zach Moss at this point, again, 2 to 4 weeks, maybe the difference between making the playoffs or making money. Michael Pittman, 96% snaps, 13 for 10 for 107. Poor man's Keenan Allen. Josh Downs, 68% snaps, 13 for 5 for 43. Again, I like the 13 targets. I did look that they weren't air yard targets; they were just checkdowns. But again, the opportunities there. So from a perspective of wide receiver threes, this puts them towards the top because again, opportunity is always going to be king. Alec Pierce was at 95% snap, 6 for 4 for 27. So again, just being on the field means that a guy like Alec Pierce, just what his skill set is. Some guys have said, running wind sprints on the field, but that 95% snaps is going to get him home on certain weeks relative to some of these other slot only guys that are going to have lower ceilings. Let's see. From a dynasty perspective, Alec Ogletree was out. Kyle Granson was at 42% snap, 1 target. Mo Alley Cox was at 47% snaps, 1 for 1 for 30. Will Mallory, the rookie, I think he's 6th or 7th rounder from Miami, and he was an athletic freak, 4, 5, 6 tight end. He started the game, only 37% snaps, 3 for 2 for 29. So if we're tracking potential usage going forward in this offense, this athletic freak, if he either gets higher snap share and that continues to have opportunity, that would be a guy I would be looking forward to in redraft. But overall, Will Mallory right now is somebody that I probably should be stashing in Dynasty, at least for a week to find out how it goes. Defense, maybe a sneaky weekly start with the schedule that they have. And I already kind of talked about this with the Colts. So the Colts are limited from a talent perspective, but they have been getting it done over the last few weeks. Tennessee with rookie Will Levis, Cincinnati without Joe Burrow, Pittsburgh being Pittsburgh, Atlanta, Desmond Ritter, and then the rookie Las Vegas. There is the potential to be rolling the Colts out there weekly going on the rest of the season. All right. Redskins, Sam Howell, 28, 44, 300, a pick, 2 for 13, a tug. This game they have coming up with Miami, it looks to be an absolute shootout. Worst defense in the league going up against Miami. That means that the Redskins offense is going to have to keep pace. I talked about this before with B-Rob. He was at 45% snaps, 15 for 53, 3 for 2 for 11. I said early in the year that he's this year's Josh Jacobs, and then he just isn't getting the snap share. Well, he's still this year's Josh Jacobs. It's just that it's not it's not an apples to apples thing. So scoring leaders wise, he's running back 5 on the year in overall points. So right there. So like he's this year's Josh Jacobs relative to his draft capital where he goes. So again, like he's going to be very boom bust. As we see, it's no longer trying to predict a B-Rob week with the running back landscape. He's your RB2. He can win you a week. Everybody's been hurting at running back. So again, I just been rolling him out there. Someone asked like if you have a trade deadline in your fantasy league still available, like B-Rob's one of the guys that I would be going after. Rashad White would be a guy that I'd be going after. Based off usage. I don't think you're going to get Kieran Williams anymore. Ramondre is a guy that maybe you could buy a little on. Jerome Ford would be a guy that I'd be looking at going forward. Again, the running back situation is so bad. I don't know how you're going to necessarily upgrade your roster because, even with the wide receivers, there's so few guys that have been consistent. It's going to be difficult to pry those guys away unless you're willing to give up a lot in the first place, and that might end up damaging your overall prospects. So, Antonio Gibson was at 46% stats, 6 for 21, 4 for 3 for 16. I do think that if B-Rob goes down, it would be Chris Rodriguez's offense or backfield. But I think Antonio Gibson would be the guy that would cost you more money to go find out in waivers. I talked about this cuff. So Chris Rodriguez was at 5% snaps, 4 for 21. That was in this blowout. Scary Terry, 85% snaps, 11 targets. Curtis Samuel, 55% snaps, 12 targets, 9 receptions, 100 yards. Johan Dotson, 85% snaps, 6 for 5 for 52. And with the projection of what this game is going to look like, if Curtis Samuel or Dotson are available, I would probably be rolling him out there this week to see what's going to happen in this Miami game, expecting that this will be like a 300 or 400 yard passing game. Or at least if that doesn't happen, B-Rob's going to go run wire because they're going to have to keep up with this Dolphins offense somehow. Logan Thomas, 64% snaps, 4 for 2 for 15. And again, if I can roll him out my tight end slot, this would be a good week to be streaming him. I just roll out everybody in the matchup. And then defense, obviously, it's the worst fantasy defense overall, so I don't want to be touching them. Cowboys, Dak is going to be elite or very close to it, especially with his schedule rest of the way. Where are the Cowboys? So we're looking at games where Dak would have to put up points. Maybe Seattle, definitely Philadelphia, definitely Buffalo, definitely Miami, definitely the Lions. So I could definitely see like Dak is potentially going to win a lot of leagues. So again, if you're in a league where there's still trades available, this would be a guy I'd be targeting. That they may not be able to just win with defense. They may have to actually keep pace with other teams. And again, you saw this in the game between the Buffalo Bills and the Eagles last week. Like these teams are going to have to keep pace with each other, and just throwing out guys that are attached to these games, you could get a piece of that, and that could win you your week. So that's just something I'd be looking at going forward. Tony Pollard, slowly but surely, he's not going to return on investment, but he could end up finishing as a top 10 running back. 76% snaps, 13 for 79, a touchdown, 6 for 6 for 24. Rico Dowdle's the cuff. He did score a touchdown on a 15-yard play. He is dealing with an ankle, so be aware of that going forward. CeeDee Lamb, 93% snaps, 9 for 4 for 53 and a tug. Brandon Cooks, 80% snaps, 5 for 4 for 72 and a tug. So when it comes to being on a good offense with an elite quarterback doing 80% snaps, there are worse wide receivers to be rolling out there right now than Brandon Cooks, trying to get a hold of whatever's going to happen on a week-to-week basis. Again, more vertical targets, possibility to score touchdowns. Those are what we look for to win leagues instead of worse offenses. Even if they have better opportunity, it's not the opportunity that I necessarily want. Michael Gallup was down at 33% snaps, 1 for 1 for 13. He's not a thing. Jalen Tolbert was at 37% snaps, 3 for 2 for 49. And then there was a Cavante Turpin sighting, 9% snaps, 1 for 1 for 34 and touchdown. From a fantasy perspective, this is bad because it looks like they are giving touches to all their toys, and it's good. It's good football. It's just bad for fantasy. Jake Ferguson, 72% snaps, 3 for 1 for 35. Luke Schoonmaker, the second round pick, rookie, 41% snaps, 2 for 1 for 12. Cannibalizing Ferguson. I think Ferguson's still going to finish the year as a top 10 tight end. And he's the guy that I had looked to pick up to basically be insurance against Dalton Kincaid with Dawson Knox coming back. So if you have the ability to go out and get a Jake Ferguson to provide insurance against a Dalton Kincaid or something like that, Ferguson, I think, would be a guy that a lot of people may not be protecting, and he'll probably finish as a top 10 tight end. And then I do have a comment about the Cowboys defense. I'm rolling them out. If I have them rest of the year, I think they're a pretty good matchup against Seattle. Jalen Hurts is a turnover machine. Josh Allen's a turnover machine. Tua's been struggling. And then Detroit, Goff has been a little bit of a turnover machine. So again, I think that you could just roll them out the rest of the way, even though some of the matchups say they might be higher scoring games. You're not chasing that. You're chasing turnovers and sacks. The Dolphins. So Tua's got a rough schedule rest of the way. And I've been talking about this for a while. So he goes Washington this week. He should, I would project him to be the quarterback 1 overall this week against Washington. Tennessee, that's going to be an ugly game. The Jets is going to be an ugly game. Dallas could really hurt him. And then Baltimore really could be an ugly game for him also. So if I'm the Tua owner, I should be getting ready to pivot off of him after week 13. Raheem Mostert was at 60% snaps, 20 for 94, 2 tugs, 1 target. What bothers me is Jeff Wilson's 33% snaps, 11 for 56, 3 for 3 for 17. So that receiving floor that Mostert needs to be able to give you that 40-degree day when he's not scoring touchdowns and he's not being efficient enough on the ground is going someplace else. So that's why I would say Jeff Wilson should be rostered. Again, Miami's backfield could support 2 starting running backs in fantasy. And that's on top of the fact that he might be right now, he's the priority cuff until we know what's going on with A-Chain. A-Chain was basically a healthy scratch. They basically said he could have played. They just why roll him out early? They don't have to. So that's something else to be being aware of with Mostert down the line, that A-Chain is still the number 1 on a points per basis fantasy running back. So I can't see how that's not going to affect Mostert with that schedule coming up down the line. Tyreek Hill, 63% snaps, 12 for 9 for 102 and a touchdown. Jalen Waddle, 66% snaps, 8 for 8 for 114. And again, these high efficiency plays where he gets 8 targets, 8 receptions, that's not something that is sustainable on the season. He's still going to be a bust relative to his draft status, but attached to this offense, with that schedule going on down the line, it's going to be a rough road for him to get home on a lot of weeks. Claypool had a knee procedure. He's probably not going to be a thing in this offense. I do think Claypool, theoretically going into the playoffs has value, because that would be the guy that would allow Jalen Waddle to get the opportunities if they ISO Claypool into the boundary. Anyway, the defense does have a lot of appeal going forward against the Redskins, Tennessee, the Jets, and then wouldn't be rolling them out for the semis and the chip. All right, the Eagles. Jalen Hurts is a touchdown machine. He's also a turnover machine. 18 for 31, 200 yards, 3 tugs, a pick, 14 for 65, 2 more tugs on the ground, and then he lost a fumble. DeAndre Swift was at 64% snaps, 14 for 80, 1 for 1 for 4. And then Kenneth Gainwell is at 65% snaps, 2 for 26, 3 for 2 for 10. And then Boston Scott got in there with 8% snaps, 2 for 14, and a target. And I've been talking about this. I do think that Rashad Penny is the handcuff to Swift if he goes down. And heading into the playoffs, that would be something I'd be more interested in if I'm the Swift owner. Now, with Hurts being the goal line running back, that's going to downgrade Swift's overall value. It probably would downgrade a potential handcuff in Penny. And then the receiving work that Swift needs to have that floor is being passed around between guys like Gainwell and Scott. So that's going to overall lower his value. I would be aware of that from a roster construction standpoint, that Swift is probably not going to give me the ability to win a week. And he's also going to be very volatile when it comes to losing me a week. AJ Brown, 94% snaps, 9 for 5 for 37 and a tug. Deontay Smith was at 98% snaps, 8 for 7 for 106 and a tug. It was his week. It wasn't Brown's week. Brown got home with a tug. And again, that high efficiency, 8 for 7. It bothers me a little bit going into the playoffs, but what are you going to do at this point? I do think he's probably going to be the league winner of the two guys, just like he was last year, rest of the season. Julio Jones, 71% snap, 3-for-1, and no yards. But again, 71% snaps. He's going to have a certain degree of non-predictive fantasy value rest of the season. Dallas Goedert could come off the IR this week, but they said that they're looking at him coming off or being active week 14. So stashing him a week early. But a guy like Dallas Goedert, I'm less than interested in because it's already going to be cannibalized, or AJ Brown and Devonta Smith are already going to cannibalize each other. So again, I'm just not overwhelmingly looking to get a piece of that unless I have to get prepared to play one of those elite tight ends in the playoffs, and I don't have a better option going forward. And then the defense is a no because of the schedule. Maybe I can roll them out week 15 at Seattle. The Falcons, Desmond Ridder was back, 13 for 21, 168, a tug and 2 picks. Bijan, 63% snap, 16 for 91, a touchdown, 6 for 3 for 32 and a tug. Tyler Algier at 29% snaps, 10 carries, 64 yards. Cordell Patterson, 26% snaps, 8 for 43. That bothers me a lot, that the split between Algier and Cordell Patterson. Arthur Smith is just an idiot. What bothers me with Bijan is it looks like wide receiver 1 usage, but he's still being eaten into by Algier and Patterson. So this does not necessarily tell me that the corner was turned. It just means that they got the stat line to have people shut up. Drake London was at 84% snaps, 7 for 5 for 91. And again, you rolling out pieces of this Atlanta offense is buyer beware, at your own risk. Kyle Pitts was at 50% snaps, 2 for 2 for 22, and Jonnu Smith was down to 35% snaps, no usage, so or no opportunities. And again, something's either going on behind the scenes or Arthur Smith's a moron. And I would probably say a little column A, a little column B. The defense, right now, they are a roll this week at the Jets. Tim Boyle, who is not an upgrade to Zach Wilson, is being trotted back out there. So, yeah, I'm rolling out anybody I can get a hold of that's attached to this that's going to play the Jets going forward. And they do potentially have the ability to be rolled out rest of season. That's what I have written down in my notes. So Atlanta goes the Jets, Tampa Bay. We don't know if that's going to be Baker May or Kyle Trask at this point. Carolina, that would depending on if the fire coaches really were making a difference. But right now I'd be rolling them out. Indianapolis, Gardner Minshew is a turnover machine. And week 17, Justin Fields is a turnover and sack machine. So the Falcons are a rest of season play at this point. And they do lead the NFC South. And because of that situation with the playoffs, they potentially could be in it even with losing some games. So they will be playing for the playoffs regardless if you're worried about that. So the Giants, Tommy DeVito is not necessarily bad at football. 17 for 25, 191 a tug, 5 for 6, and then 2 fumbles, 1 loss. I tried to look it up. I don't know how much I would even trust him being rolled out in a 2-quarterback league. I don't think he's necessarily streamable. The matchups don't say roll him out, but he is a surprise. And the one thing I will say about Tommy DeVito, if you are stashing it in some of these leagues, Brock Purdy was, Mr. Irrelevant last guy in a draft. So it doesn't necessarily mean, I don't know anything about Tommy DeVito. I don't know if anybody does. And again, if Brock Purdy could do it, it doesn't mean it's outside the realm of possibility. Saquon Barkley is a massive downgrade, 81% snaps, 12 for 46, 3 for 1 for 6. Jalen Hyatt, 60% snaps, 6 for 5 for 109. I don't think this is going to continue to go up. But these were vertical shots. I should have had the tape available for it, but I didn't think about it. These were more vertical shots down the line. I don't necessarily think that his snaps are going to go up and his opportunities are going to go up. But again, guy that's getting downfield with his speed, if they are allowing Tommy DeVito to uncork them, he's going to get home, which means that rolling out a guy like Jalen Hyatt on a week-to-week basis versus some of these other lower floor or higher floor wide receiver threes, he's going to have a better chance to win you a week with that volatility than some of the other guys. Daniel Bellinger was at 90% snaps, 1 for 1 for 8. So again, in deeper leagues, if you're streaming a tight end, a guy that's on the field that much is going to eventually get home, and the offense does have a little bit more appeal. And the defense does have some sneaky appeal after the bye. They have Green Bay and they have the Saints. So to pull that up and we can talk about that. So yeah, Green Bay, Jordan Love, we don't know if he's good or not. The Saints offense has been really have struggled a lot, and then maybe the Rams week 17, I probably wouldn't be rolling them out against Philadelphia, even though you could. Jalen Hurts is a turnover machine. That's what I've talked about. All right, the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence, 23 for 38, 364 and a tug and a pick, and then another tug on the ground. Let's see. Travis Etienne, 61% snaps, 20 for 56, and then another 6 for 4 for 30. Tank Bigsby's only at 3% snaps. Dearness Johnson was at 39% snaps, 7 for 19, 2 for 1 for 42. He's going to be the cuff. This would be a very priority pickup if you're the Etienne owner going forward. And again, I don't know what's going on with his offense. This offense doesn't have a lot of identity, so I don't know, what to think about Etienne, who went from this like elite level usage to now he's not even being. He still has the elite usage, 20 carries, six targets. He's just not getting the touchdowns. Touchdowns are going other places. One of the places the touchdowns are going is to Calvin Ridley, 93% snaps, 6 for 5 for 89 and a tug. And again, those high efficiency usage, 6 targets, 5 receptions, they're vertical. That's not something that's sustainable usually. That means boom bust type of guy. The guy that's going to be safer floor is Christian Kirk, 76% snaps, 7 for 4 for 89. And again, like that's more sustainable usage down the line. Zay Jones is at 71% snaps, 3 for 1 for 10. He will probably have his weeks. And it just depends on, who they're going to take away, where the Jaguars are going to go. Evan Ingram, 70% snaps, 8 for 5 for 49. And again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Defense, Cincinnati at Cleveland. And then I do say that they have the semis and the chip. So we will talk about that again. So yeah, Tampa Bay, probably going to be Baker May, maybe Kyle Trask, and then Carolina. So like the Jaguars defense is someone to be stashing if they are available. Even though we want to be attacking the Jets, the teams that are playing the Jets going forward right now. Tim Boyle is not an upgrade from Zach Wilson, and Tim Boyle will start again week 13. I just wrote down for Breece Hall. I don't care. You're probably rolling out Breece Hall because he is your RB2, but yeah, I don't care about Dalvin Cook. Garrett Wilson, I don't care about. This was so horrible to watch in this game. This is a coaching issue. This is a talent issue. And I could definitely see the Jets are shutting down as a team. Maybe you could think about rolling out their defense at Atlanta, but like I'm more worried that the team is shutting down. They look that bad. The Lions, Jared Goff, 29 of 44, 332, 2 tugs, 3 fumbles lost. And I wouldn't be streaming them against New Orleans defense, who's okay, and Jared Goff is a turnover machine. David Montgomery, 27% snaps. That is a little concerning. 15 for 71, 1 tug, 1 target. Jahmyr Gibbs, 71% snaps, 11 for 54, 8 for 4 for 19. I don't know if this is a game script issue or a usage issue at this rate, but as long as David Montgomery's getting home, but the analytics are saying like there's smoke, there's fire. The Sun guy was at 92% snaps, 11 for 9 for 95. Jameson Williams is a guy that I'm probably going to be picking up where I can if I need to be rolling out a wide receiver 3 if he's available at this point. To take off that, to talk about Jameson Williams. So his snaps are going up. Snap share or his route participation is going up from what I understand. He's 3 for 2 for 51, going to get those vertical shots. He's going to get home one of these weeks. And then with the schedule going down the line, I can see the Bears turning into a shootout. Minnesota could be a shootout, and Dallas could be a shootout. These are better offenses that could put some stress on the Detroit going on. So yeah, that would be a guy I would be looking to roll out in that wide receiver 3 spot. The defense, I have maybe the Saints, maybe Chicago turnover machine, maybe Minneapolis turnover machine going down the line. The Packers, Jordan Love, 22 of 32, 268, 3 tugs, 3 for 39. He's going to be a risky start for against Kansas City. Again, it doesn't matter if I think he's good at football or not. He's getting home with his toys, and that's just something I would be rolling him out. But again, the Giants, Tampa Bay, Carolina are potential weeks that I would be rolling him out and feeling pretty good about it. AJ Dillon, 52% snaps, 14 for 43, 3 through 3 through 8. I don't know how consistent he's going to be. He hasn't been very high efficiency. They released James Robinson and picked up or brought back in Patrick Taylor, 48% snaps, 3 for 11, 1 for 1 for 4. I don't know what's going on with Aaron Jones out. Maybe you're cuffing if you're Patrick Taylor. I think there's better places to go if you're really worried. If you're rolling out A.J. Dillon as a starter, you're already in a bad spot. Christian Watson, 88% snaps, 7 for 5 for 94, and a tug. He had 140 air yards, so that's what we were chasing. Romeo Dobbs, 86% snaps, 4 for 3 for 7 or 37. Jaden Reed was at 73% snaps, 8 for 4 for 34 and a tug, and another 2 for 16 and a tug on the ground. So yeah, like I really like the usage of Jaden Reed, and from the standpoint of chasing those wide receiver threes, he's more of a priority. I'd almost put him in that wide receiver 2 category because of overall usage. Tucker Croft was at 96% snaps, 2 for 2 for 15 and a tug. Luke Musgrave may not return this year because of a lacerated kidney. So Tucker Croft would be a guy that I would be interested as a low-end tight end one based off of usage rest of the year. The defense, week 14 through 16, they have at the Giants, Tampa Bay, and at Carolina, so that those would be potential good weeks to match them up. So the Panthers fired head coach Frank Wright, quarterback coach Josh McDown, and running back coach Deuce Staley that he handpicked to bring in. Bryce Young with his matchup this week is something that, like, if you're talking about like rolling out Tommy DeVito against the Redskins, Bryce Young this week going up against Tampa Bay and the second worst passing defense, this is the week to be rolling him out and trying to catch lightning in a bottle. I don't know, outside of a desperation stream in like 10 team leagues, something like that, one quarterback leagues, I would be trusting Bryce Young. The tea leaves say roll him out. In super flex leagues, I definitely probably would be rolling him out if I can get away with it. Chuba Hubbard was at 64% snaps, 14 for 45, another 5 for 5 for 47. The problem is this is still not projecting to be a good offense, so the ability to score touchdowns is going to limit his overall value. Miles Sanders was at 36% snaps, 15 for 28 in a target. I would be cuffing Miles Sanders to Chuba Hubbard at this point. Ghost of Adam Thielen was at 89% snaps, 3 for 1 for 2. Those were lower productive snaps. I've been saying for a while, get off your Adam Thielen's shares. Jonathan Mingo, 92% stats, 6 for 4 for 60 is a buy right now. And if you're picking up Jonathan Mingo, hoping that he could potentially grow into some type of wide receiver 2 on this season, I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea. The opportunity has been there pretty much all season. He's been on the field, getting some of the targets have been going up. They are turning into some production at 60% snaps. So even if he doesn't get home at Tampa Bay, you could still be rolling him out there. I would bet that he's going to have one of those weeks. And this is one of the things I talk about, like overall value of players. The guys that spike during the playoffs, 15, 16, 17, are the ones that win leagues. So, like maybe if you're struggling to get into your playoffs right now, he might get you in, he might not, but rolling him out there in the wide receiver 3 range to flex range during the playoffs, this is one of the guys that, like, he may not be predictive on a week-to-week basis, but it will be it is going to happen right now. Like everything is saying that the usage is going to be there to get home one of these upcoming weeks. The defense is maybe this week at Tampa Bay if Baker Mayfield isn't a go, but I think there are better options going forward. All right, the Patriots. So Mac Jones was yanked again. 2 picks. He was bad. Bailey Zappi is not an upgrade, just like Tim Boyle's not an upgrade to Zach Wilson. He threw a pick in relief. Maybe Malik Cunningham in deeper leagues is going to be interesting if they roll him out because of the rushing upside. Just think about like Cam Newton for the Patriots. Ramondre Stevenson, 78% snaps, 21 of 98, and a touchdown, another 5 for 5 for 9 in scamming leagues. Zeke was at 22% snaps, 9 for 46, 2 for 2 for 6. The problem with Ramondre is not that he's not looking better and the usage isn't there. It's that the offense is bad, and then that means the ability to score touchdowns. So this is kind of like the opposite of Joe Mixon when he's attached to Joe Burrow. Like he's going to get the volume, and they just aren't going to get there, as opposed to Joe Mixon getting the volume and then being able to get there. So, like, yeah, if that makes any sense, I kind of don't think it does. So Demario Douglas was at 9 for 6 for 49. He left with a concussion. Again, I'm not interested in horizontal targets. If you want that safe floor, go ahead and chase it. The guy that I would be interested in if I'm in deeper leagues is Devontae Parker's back, 75% snaps, 5 for 3 for 40 something. I just didn't write it down correctly. The defense, the tea leaves say roll them out at the Chargers this week. But again, unless you're in deeper leagues, I don't know how much I'd be trusting that. The Chargers have been inconsistent, and the Patriots defense has been, able to be difficult for other teams with a lack of talent. The Raiders, Aiden O'Connell, serviceable. That's all we care about from a fantasy perspective. 23 of 33, 248, and a touchdown. There's some of this is a coaching issue going on with what's going on with the Raiders. Antonio Pierce is a young guy who doesn't know exactly how to operate doesn't know how to run a team during a game. So that's part of the issue with what's going on with the Raiders. Josh Jacobs, 76% snaps, 20 for 110, a touchdown. Did have a 63-yarder and then another 6 targets for 4 receptions for 15 on the ground. I talked about this in the handcuff video. Amir Abdullah is 21% snaps, 1 for 1 or 1 for 11, and then 1 for 1 for 2. So he's going to be the passing down back if Josh Jacobs goes out. But I would definitely see that Zamir White would be the guy that would be in that 60% role going forward. Devontae Adams was at 100% snaps, 7 for 5 for 73. So this is going to keep him viable. It may not get him back up to the capital that was spent, but he's going to be able to get there most weeks. Jacoby Myers, this brings him back up into that wide receiver 2 range, 91% snaps, 7 for 6 for 79 a tug. Hunter Renfrow, 48% snaps, 4 for 4 for 38. And the reason why I bring him up is trying to chase Trey Tucker, the rookie 3rd rounder out of Cincinnati. He's at 22% snaps. It's going to be very difficult. They have kind of different skill sets. So I don't think outside of fantasy or dynasty that I would be really worried about Trey Tucker. And then Michael Mayer, he's still going to be around. He's going to have a week, 84% snaps, 4 for 2 for 27. It's just going to be very difficult. They're going to keep AOC serviceable. They're going to stay in their football games. And without the ability to push vertically down the field and have the higher volume passing offense, it's going to make Michael Mayer very difficult. But in dynasty leagues, I'd be very excited about him. The defense is sneaky out of the bye week. They have Minnesota if Josh Dobbs is still a quarterback. Even if he's not the quarterback, Mullins and Hall are still probably not going to be significant upgrades. And then the Chargers are looking like they're a team to be focusing on going forward when it comes to rolling out streaming defenses. And then week 17, they have at Indianapolis. That's going to be Gardner Minshew. So believe it or not, the Raiders have some weekly appeal coming out of the bye week. All right, the Rams. Matt Stafford, 25, 33, 229, 4 tugs. That's not going to be replicable. 1 pick. And if you're into streaming him, I would not be rolling him out at Cleveland or week 13 or at Baltimore week 14. But yes, to Washington week 15. So again, depending on what your quarterback situation is, stashing Matt Stafford for week 15 Washington, and then week 17 the Giants would be a good roll. Kieran Williams is still a unicorn, 61% snaps, 16 for 143, 6 for 6 for 61, and 2 tugs through the air. Royce Freeman in the blowout, 34% snaps, 13 for 77, and a tug. Like I said, I don't know if I would be necessarily cuffing Kieran Williams if he goes down again. I could definitely see it being a running back by committee. And remember, the Rams are in the playoff hunt in the NFC, so like they are going to be competitive. I don't have anything written down for Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua. They were both in the 80s when it comes to their snap share. I kind of think that this was just kind of a wonky overall week, from a fantasy standpoint, because they were blowing out the Cardinals. Cooper Kupp 81% snaps, and then Cooper Kupp was at 88% snaps, and then Tutu Atwell was the guy who got home in the passing yardage range. And then from a tight end perspective, Higbee got the 2 receiving touchdowns, and then Kieran Williams got the 2 other receiving touchdowns. So there's just this very weird outcome where these 2 guys that are normally going to be the target hogs just didn't need to get any work because Kieran Williams ran for 143 yards, had 60 receiving yards. The receiving touchdowns went to 2 guys that are probably the number 3, number 4, or number 5 option in the offense. And then the number 3 wide receiver sucked up what was left of the receiving yards. And then there just, isn't a lot left for these 2 high-end wide receiver 2s. But like I pointed out before in the sausage video, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, like if I'm one of these owners, I realized that the other guy could burn me. It just so happened that like neither guy got home this week. So yeah. And then the defense is maybe a play this week at Cleveland, being aware of who the quarterback is going to be for Cleveland. Definitely PJ Walker. If they announce him to be the starting quarterback, I would be rolling out the Rams defense against PJ Walker. Joe Flacco, I don't know. That might just be, he might be just a very serviceable game manager. If it's DTR, he looked better. And so I maybe think that the offense might function if he's the starting quarterback. All right, the Ravens. I think it's going to be very difficult to predict anything about this Ravens offense going forward. Lamar Jackson, 18 for 32, 177 and a tug, another 11 for 39 and a fumble not lost. And again, this was against like the worst defense in football in the Chargers. Gus Bus, 27% snaps, 8 for 26, 1 for 1 for 11. Justice Hill, 28% snaps, 5 for 31 target. He got 3 red zone carries. And then Keaton Mitchell, 46% snaps, 9 for 64, 2 for 2 for 25. I have written down league winner. If he continues to get an uptick in opportunity and snaps, he's going to be in that boom bust running back 2 role. I don't think he's going to ever get the red zone carries, and I don't know how much design passing work he's going to get. But again, all he has to be able to do is get in that like 12 to 15 opportunity range, and especially as bad as the running back situation is going to be, he spikes in the right week, he's going to win your league. And this is all the the variables going in the right direction from where it looked like earlier in the season. They look like they want to get him the football. They are phasing out Gus Bus and Justice Hill, and then he's getting this higher efficiency usage. This is all stuff that's very difficult to predict. So Zay Flowers, 94% snaps, 8 for 5 for 25 and a tug, a 37-yard rushing touchdown at the end of the game. He should have gone down. So they probably yelled at him afterwards. If you're be happy that you got the work, but he shouldn't have scored that touchdown. OBJ was at 32% snaps, 5 for 3 for 34. And again, that's not the guy that I would be chasing if I was chasing anybody in this offense in the passing game. Rashad Bateman, 80% snaps, 5 for 2 for 21. And I can show you this so you're not staring at the screen. That's if I'm chasing a guy in this offense during the playoffs. Nelson Aguilar was at 41% snaps, 2 for 1 for 21. And this is just stuff like, how predictable is any of this stuff with any of these guys? Especially, this is a game where the Ravens should have blown out the Chargers. If anything, their offense should just put up 30, 40 points, and they didn't do it. So I don't know how predictable any of this is. Isaiah Likely, 73% snaps, 6 for 4 for 40. I do think he's going to hang around as a tight end one rest of the way with Mark Andrews out. The defense is a weekly play, and there might be a little bit of an issue with streaming them. Let's see. I do have that written down. So Rams, yeah. Jacksonville, maybe not. San Francisco, maybe not. And then Miami, maybe not. So you can choose either one. You can try and match up shop. If I can get the team playing the Jets defense, I would be rolling them out in some of these matchups. But overall, if I just set and forget the Baltimore Ravens, I feel pretty happy they are in that elite tier this year. All right, the Saints. Derek Carr, 24-38, 304. Let's see. It's tough to predict Derek Carr. I have this written down in my notes because they have other guys like Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara that can get the touchdowns that you need for him to really be relevant. And they do a lot of gadget stuff with the offense, which is going to be hard to predict. They don't score a lot of touchdowns on top of that. So they're in this okay range. I'm actually going to roll out their kicker this week because I think they're just going to have a lot of drives that stall. Alvin Kamara, 64% snaps, 15 for 69, 5 for 450. I'm really excited about rolling out Alvin Kamara with all the vacated targets that are going to be out there for the Saints, with Shaheed and Olave potentially being out this week. Jamal Williams is the cuff at 28% snap, but then Kendra Miller was the healthy scratch. If Kamara goes down, I would be looking at rolling out Kendra Miller. I think he has the higher upside. Olave, 47% snaps, did 9 for 7 for 114 before he went out with a concussion. Raheed Shaheed, 26% snaps before he went out with a quad, 5 for 2 for 9. A.T. Perry did not cash in on this, 74% snaps, 2 for 1 for 7. And again, I would not be paying to find out what goes on with A.T. Perry, but it's something that I would still be interested in if I don't have to pay for it. Lim Bowden would be the guy that I would be chasing a little bit. I would be putting a little bit more money in on from an opportunity standpoint. With all this going on, he was up to 64% snaps, 2 targets, 2 carries. He can also play a little quarterback if they decide to do that. Taysom Hill was down to 35% snaps, 2 for 2 for 55 in the passing game, another 7 for 26, and a fumble lost. Juwan Johnson is another guy that you could be looking at from the tight end position. Remember, tight ends can't lose you your week. They can only win you your week. There's going to be vacated targets. 74% snaps, 7 for 4 for 45, and that's with all the wide receivers out. The defense is a weekly play, starting with week 14, Carolina, week 15, the Giants. So to look at my shares of New Orleans, yeah, definitely probably wouldn't be rolling them out against Detroit if I can get around it. Might be better streaming options. Maybe the Rams, maybe Tampa Bay. So I could be rolling them out. And then overall, rolling them out, like Detroit's defense hasn't looked particularly good. Carolina, the Giants, the Rams, and Tampa Bay. So I would be rolling out whatever I can with the Saints. So A.T. Perry is still a pretty good wide receiver 3 if I don't have to pay a lot to find out about him going forward with their schedule for the meantime. Seahawks, Geno Smith, 18 for 27, 180, a pick, 4 for 21, and I wouldn't be streaming him until week 16 at Tennessee if I get away with it. Kenneth Walker, he didn't practice on Monday. I did see that Pete Carroll said that like he doesn't think that it's a long way for Kenneth Walker to be playing this week. Zach Charbonnet was at 88% snaps, 14 for 47, 4 for 4 for 11. The schedule I do have written down to be paying attention. I know they play Dallas, I think, on Thursday night this week. Dallas, San Francisco, maybe Philadelphia. Tennessee's going to be rough, and Pittsburgh. So there's going to be a limited ability for him to outdo his schedule. So this is like one of the things I talk about with like from a fantasy perspective. Sometimes guys just have to be good to outmatch their schedules. So if you're schedule shopping, Zach Charbonnet is not going to be the guy, but like from an opportunity standpoint, he is. Kenny McIntosh, the rookie out of Georgia, no snaps in his debut. DK Metcalf was at 86% snaps, 9 for 3 for 32. Lockett was at 95% snaps, 5 for 3 for 30. JSN was at 75%, 3 for 2 for 41. And I was expecting Lockett's snaps to be limited with a hamstring. They weren't. So again, if you rolled out your JSN shares, we got burned. Jake Bobo was at 21% snaps, 1 for 1 for 6. And the defense has a very favorable playoff matchup going forward. Let's see. Yeah, Tennessee and Pittsburgh rolling them out in the semis and the chip. All right. So the Steelers, if you didn't hear, Matt Kennedy got fired, and then the first play from scrimmage, they attacked the middle of the field, something that he hasn't been calling. Kenny Pickett is streamable now, 24 for 33, 278, another 5 for 5 on the ground. So he does got a little sneaky, nimbly bimbly, and he has a sneaky stream this week with all these guys being out against Arizona. He does have weapons. And I do think he is talented, and I think the coaching was the one thing that was getting in the way of him. Najee was 54% snaps, 15 for 99 and a tug. Jalen Warren was at 48% snap, 13 for 49, 3 for 3 for 13, and a fumble lost. I think these guys are both like low end RB2s. Rest of the way, they're going to be limited by the fact that they either need to fall in the end zone or they're going to have to get some type of receiving floor. The bigger thing that I would be looking at if I'm a Najee or Warren owner and I still have trades open in my league is to get my cup, because if one of these guys goes down, the other one's going to win a league. George Pickens, 75% snaps, 3 for 5 for 58. Deontay Johnson was at 73% snaps, 8 for 4 for 50. Freiermuth, 59% snaps, 11 for 9 for 120. And again, like he was at 53% snaps coming off the IR for his hamstring. Hayward was at 34% snaps, and Washington, the rookie, was at 52% snaps. I don't know what's going on with the usage going forward. And it's going to also be difficult with Muth going forward, fighting for opportunities with Pickens and Deontay Johnson. So he would not necessarily be a priority for me coming off of waivers unless I can get him for basically for free. The defense, maybe a weekly roll rest of the way with their schedule. And I can bring that up. So Arizona, maybe definitely the Pittsburgh turnover machine. Gardner Minshew week 15. No Joe Burrow 16. 17 at Seattle. Seattle hasn't looked as good. So yeah, they are a weekly roll. Regardless of analytics, they would be a weekly roll going forward. The Texans. So CJ Stroud is going to be in the discussion for fantasy MVP this year. 26 for 36, 304, 2 tugs. and 6 for 47 and a tug on the ground. And that's one of the crazy things. Like, that did not project out of college that he's turning into this kind of this rushing floor upside. That's what I said. I was not interested in him early in the year because the lack of the rushing, and now the rushing's there, and that's going to push him in the elite type territory. So Dameon Pierce back, only 18% snaps, 5 for 14, 1 for 1 for 4. Devin Singletary, 82% snaps, 6 for 18, 7 for 6 for 54. I'm less concerned overall with the 6 for 18 on the ground. Remember, rushing yards are gravy. It's the receiving work that's great. And then depending on how it shakes out, if one of these guys becomes the goal line back, that would be the guy that's going to end up having a lot of value too. But as long as they stay a high volume passing offense, Singletary being on the field this much and getting the receiving work is going to be awesome. Mike Boone, the third down pass catching guy, he was a healthy scratch with Pierce and Singletary being in the game. Nico Collins was at 77% snaps, 9 for 7, 104 in a tug. Tank Dell, 80% snaps, 8 for 5 for 50 in a tug. Noah Brown was out. I don't know what was going on with Dalton Schultz. He was only at 48% snaps, 2 for 1 for 2. And then none of the other guys, I wouldn't be chasing Robert Woods or John Mechie unless there's a lot more injuries going on. The defense is a no to Denver at this point because Denver has actually been playing a little bit better. I know I was talking about Houston as potentially being a good defense going the rest of the way, and I still think that they are. But right now, I wouldn't be rolling them out against Denver, but I would be stashing them, getting ready to go play the Jets, Tennessee, potentially Cleveland, and then they got Tennessee again. So this would be the week to be picking up the Titans or the Texans defense. Wouldn't be playing them against the Broncos, but I would be getting ready to roll them rest of the season. Will Levis was 18 for 28 for 185. And it's not going to be this year at this point, just because they're not good. Derrick Henry is at 64% snaps, 18 for 76, 2 tugs, another 2 for 2 for 0 through the air. Tyjae Spears at 40% snaps, 2 for 6, 3 for 1 for 1. I hate to put it like this. If Derrick Henry goes down, they might open up this passing game. That would help Will Levis and Tyjae Spears. But if they're just going to play that old Titans style of football, they're going to have low snaps overall. That hurts everybody. DeAndre Hopkins was at 57% snaps, 5 for 3 for 49. Burks was rolled out again with a concussion. The defense is a sneaky roll against the Colts because Gardner Minshew is a turnover machine. Let's see. The Vikings on Monday Night Football, last one. Josh Dobbs, again, turnover machine, 22 for 32, 185, a tug, 4 picks, but he did avoid fumbling. He only was 2 for 11 on the ground. The coach came out and said he was almost benched. They're going to evaluate Nick Mullins and Jaron Hall coming out of the bye. I think Nick Mullins, and I'll bring this up if you guys are wondering, they did activate Justin Jefferson, so that's kind of a big deal. But Nick Mullins, he did play years ago for the 49ers, kind of like Brock Purdy, but Brock Purdy's better. So he was somewhat serviceable in these 2 runs that he had with the 49ers. 12 for 12 touchdowns, 12 interceptions in 2020, and then in 2018. When he, I think he was a rookie that year, he was 13 and 10. So he's going to be able to keep the offense serviceable, and he's probably not going to be quite the turnover machine Josh Dobbs is. He's not going to have the nimbly bimbly, and that's going to help him not take away opportunities from the weapons, which is what we care about from a fantasy perspective. Jaron Hall is probably the guy that, from a fantasy perspective, if you want a quarterback, he's going to have a little bit more nimbly bimbly. So like that would be the guy that I would be more interested in rolling out in 2 quarterback leagues if he's the guy that gets the job coming out of the bye. Otherwise, Josh Dobbs is going to be in that very volatile quarterback 1 type of situation that he's been flirting with all year. Alexander Madison was at 56% snaps, 10 for 52, 2 for 2 for 11, a fumble not lost. And Ty Chandler was at 33% snaps, 4 for 8, and then 2 for 1 for 3. And this was a weird game again because Josh Dobbs threw 4 interceptions and they just couldn't stay on the field. I don't know how much to take away from the backfield. Justin Jefferson was activated off IR coming out of the bye. Jordan Addison, 96% snaps, 10 targets, 6 receptions, 39 yards. KJ Osborne, 85% snaps, 4 for 3 for 34. Fumble not lost. He's not going to be fantasy relevant coming out of the bye with Justin Jefferson back. And I think this severely downgrades Jordan Addison, regardless of who the quarterback is, unless it's Nick Mullins. TJ Hawkinson, 80% snaps, 6 for 5 for 50 and a tug. The defense has week 14 at Las Vegas. Then they have Cincinnati, and the chip is Green Bay. So, like, there is a little bit of usage going on when it comes to the Vikings defense being able to be rolled out on a week-to-week basis. So if you're streaming around them, Cincinnati maybe, the Raiders maybe out of the bye, maybe not Detroit, maybe Detroit because Jared Goff is kind of a turnover machine, and then Green Bay to finish it off. So, like, there is a little bit to like about the Vikings. Kickers this week were Group A for New Orleans. Again, okay offense that doesn't score touchdowns. McManus with Denver. Again, not a good offense that doesn't score touchdowns. Sanders with Miami. Again, this is just a good offense that scores a lot of points. Bosway with Pittsburgh. This is something to be monitoring going forward. If Pittsburgh is now an okay offense that doesn't score touchdowns, that would put Boswell in the weekly running for the kicker that can win your week. And then Bass with Buffalo, and that's primarily based off the fact that Buffalo is a good offense, and I want to look this up week 12 because Santos with Chicago was in there also, and that would go in line with an offense that's okay with the Bears. So then recapping, roster your cuff, plan your defenses, and then plan your fluxes, your wide receiver threes and playoffs. Do I need a floor? Do I need a ceiling? Looking at my recap as I go back through my notes, a lot of the guys, as I try and get back up to the top, a lot of the guys that I would be looking at are in the Chasing the Dragon video this week. If you're wondering, Keaton Mitchell, if he's still available, I'm dropping the farm on Zach Moss. I'm probably also dropping the farm on Roshan Johnson. Samaje Perine is a guy that I would be sneakily picking up either as a cuff or potentially to get a week or two if there's a Javonte Williams injury. Jeff Wilson, I would be stashing. Cedric Wilson for the Browns is a guy, a wide receiver 3 with upside going into the rest of the season. Jalen Hyatt's another guy coming out of the bye, wide receiver 3 with upside that I'd be stashing. Jonathan Mingo is a guy that I would be a wide receiver 3 that I'd be looking to roll out this week. Josh Palmer for the Chargers coming off IR. Elijah Moore is a safe floor guy for the Browns that I would be looking to roll out, especially if Amari Cooper is out with ribs. Brandon Cooks is a wide receiver 3 that I would be looking to roll out, being attached to a good offense. Dallas Goedert is available to come off is available this week, week 13. Probably going to be next week that he comes back. Tucker Kraft, the tight end for the Packers, 96% snaps, is a guy that I would be picking up and stashing. A.T. Perry is a role with the vacated targets between Shaheed and Olave. OBJ versus Bateman in the Baltimore, I'd be picking Bateman. Stafford, not going to stream him this week. I would be stashing the stream. Kenny Pickett, Bryce Young are sneaky streams this week. And I already talked about the defenses going down the line. So, yeah,